Well, all right. Good morning. Welcome back to Breakfast with a Heathen. I am your favorite heathen. I always say that. I'm going to assume that I'm your favorite heathen. There might be others challenging my my position, but I'm going to say I am your favorite one. But anyways, I am Mike Smithgall, the host here of Breakfast with a Heathen, and we are. This is the day after Valentine's Day, so hope you had a very good Valentine's Day. I have no idea who Saint Valentine was. I really don't. I was raised Episcopal, so we had saints, but it didn't seem to be as important as they were, say, in Catholic religion. I mean, we sort of knew who they were, but I feel like in Catholic religion and in the Catholic religion, uh, saints are a more prominent part of the religion. People have crosses or not crosses, necklaces and things of this nature. Or there's the patron saint of X and Y, different occupations and whatever. So I have no idea who. I'm going to assume Saint Valentine had something to do with love, but that sometimes is not even close to the name that we associate with a thing. They don't always necessarily go together. There's a weird connection, and you have to really, close an eye and squint to understand why we use that saint. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you know who Saint Valentine it was and what they are known for and how it gets connected to the Valentine's Day commercialism that we have today, which I think is ridiculous and I really don't participate in, but nonetheless. So anyways, welcome. If you haven't been to the show before, thank you for joining in today. I hope you enjoy it. We just talk about my perspective on atheism, and I try to normalize it. I use that word a lot, and I absolutely mean it. I'm here to normalize it. You're not going to hear shouting and screaming. I don't generally get riled up. Every once in a while, I'll take a question that annoys me. But come on, it's Sunday morning. This is supposed to be a very chill way of doing things. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? All right, so our first one here is Sky of the Sky. Sky of the Sky. And this is a question about tithing. So the title of their question is Needing Advice, Avoiding Paying Tithes to the Church. And this is a weird, sort of complicated one. As I read over it, I said, hey, everyone, I need some advice I'm about to get my first paycheck. Now, first paycheck to me implies they are very young. That may not be the case, but we'll keep going. I'm about to get my first paycheck, which will be credited into a joint account with my father. Again, maybe makes me think maybe young. And I'm trying to create my own account, but it's taking a while. Now my parents, who go to a mega church, are fanatical adherents of the prosperity gospel, and I personally detest this church. Does anyone have any suggestions on how I can convince them to give my 10% of the income elsewhere? All right, so let's just stop with that. And they go on basically along that same line. They just do not want to give their 10% to this church. Now, they don't necessarily say that they don't like that church. Well, I mean, they do. I guess they do say they personally detest the church. They don't say that they have a problem with church in general, although this was from the ex-Christian Reddit, so I'm going to assume that that's the case. So we've got a couple different things here, and we're making some assumptions. First of all, I'm going to assume they're young because it's their first job, and they're on a checking account with their father. Generally, you're not going to be doing that when you're 19, 20 years old and older, but okay. They don't want to give 10% of their income. I do not blame you. That to me is... It's always sort of bothered me, and I'll give you a reason why. Now, when I was younger, I was in my mid-20s or so, I was a financial advisor. And if you know anything about that, I had a Series 7, a Series 63, life, health, variable annuity. I had all these different licenses that allowed me to give people advice on finances and to sell products. So that, in a nutshell, what it was. Getting people to put 10% aside for themselves is a challenge. I eventually got out of that business because it drove me crazy. Because I'm sort of a pragmatic person. So I would explain to them, look, if you put X amount away for X amount of years, you will have X amount at the end. Fairly simple. I mean, there's some variables, obviously, but give or take, that's what you could do. And I would have people say, well, I can't afford that. Okay, I understand you can't afford that. And let's look at what we can afford. Well, I really want to buy that boat. Okay, you buy that boat. You knock yourself out. Hopefully, it's around when you retire because you're spending your retirement on that boat. And I have no problem with you buying toys, but realize everything is a compromise. So when I see people say, well, I have to spend 10% or put 10% into the church, okay, man. I mean, knock yourself out, but 10%? 10%? I fail to see the return on that investment. I'm sure people think that there is. And if that's you, that's fine. It's your money, your life, but 10% is a pretty hefty sum to be giving to the church. Now, is 10% is astronomical? No, but in this person's case, I'm going to assume because they're probably a young person, they're not putting 10% aside for their retirement. Nobody is at 16, um, but they should be. You imagine how much money this person would have in their 30s, 40s, 50s if they start putting 10% away for themselves right now versus the church. So I feel bad about this question on multiple fronts, and the financial part is the first thing I thought of actually before the religious and the mega church and all this other stuff. The first thing I thought, I was like, "Oh my god, if you're gonna put 10% away, put it into a S&P 500 mutual fund or an EFT and just set it and forget it. You'll be loaded. We'll all be coming to you for a loan." But their question is not about that. Here's my second answer to this question, and it's the answer I give a lot on this channel, and that is if you're 16, 17, 8, whatever, if you're living at home and you have to live at home, therefore you're under your parents' rules, especially if you're literally under 18 or under 20, where you're kind of really you're relying on your parents and you're listening to them. There's only so much you're going to do until you're on your own. Sometimes you have got to go along to get along, right? Now, I don't like saying that because it goes against everything I stand for. It goes against my youth and how I spent my youth. And this is a person's money. They're working hard and they're having to give up 10% of that to a church that they dislike. And they do go on to say, how can I maybe get them to let me put it into another charity? And they say basically their dad, I guess in this case, will not allow that. And they're afraid if that money goes in directly into this joint account that their dad will spend it. I'm going to say have a conversation with your father and say that, there are other charities out there that you would like to give your money to, not necessarily the church. And if you have to couch it with, I like the church is fine. I have no particular problem with the church, but I would like to give some of my money towards pick a charity that you both would enjoy. That would be the route I would take. And again, I don't like saying to compromise your values, and I don't want you to compromise your values. But when you live under somebody else's roof, it is sometimes very hard to go 180 degrees away from them in something that is obviously very important to them because you don't have any other choice. You're not going to go get an apartment on your first job at 16 years old. You're just not going to be able to do that. So you're in sort of a bind there. And what I would say is have the conversation with your father. You're old enough to work, which means you're old enough to start having adult conversations with other adults, especially your parents. They may not be as opposed to it as you think. They very well could be, but they may be okay if you can find a compromise. Now, again, the financial side of me is saying, no, take that money and put it into a mutual fund. But that may not be able to be done. That's fine. I'd say still put it in a high yield savings account if you can't get a brokerage. I don't even know if you can get a brokerage open at 16. Probably not. I don't know. Actually, I have to think about it. It's been a long time since I had kids even that young. If you can't do that, find a charity that you both could agree on that would make him happy and you happy. There's one out there. There is one. May not be your favorite one, may not be the one you would choose first, but think about what charities you do like and find a charity that has that sort of same mission. Meaning, maybe you want to give it to these specific children in a specific area of town. Okay, that's great. Maybe there's a different charity that your father would enjoy that also benefits children. Meaning, if you're the kind of person who wants to benefit children, then benefiting children as a broader perspective, that's fine. Do that. I don't like that answer. I really just don't like the answer, but I don't have a better answer for you. If you are listening at home, have a better answer for Sky of the Sky, I'd love to hear it and maybe you've dealt with this with your own children, or if you were a child at some point and you had to deal with this sort of situation in terms of tithing with your parents, I would love to hear about it. But tithing is always driven me a little nutty. Again, because of my financial background, plus the idea. Some churches strong arm people about tithes. I know we all probably saw that video, 2-3 months ago, where the woman went up to the pastor during the service, and I guess he was having people come up and say the money that they're donating to the church, and she came up with a check for and with a little boy, I think, little child, she had a check for $1,200, and he said, no, that's not what I ask you. I ask you for $2,000.
I, Roberta McCoy, given faith and stand in unity with the vision of perfecting church of sowing this seed of $1,000 plus $235 and receiving the blessings to come to all that participated.
Now that's only $1,200.
Yes.
Y'all not listening to what I'm saying. If you have 1,000 plus 1,000.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna work on the other 800.
Well, that ain't what I asked you to do.
Oh my God. The amount of just rage I felt when I saw that. Are you kidding me? This woman is giving you a check and you're staying there in a full-on beautiful suit that probably costs well more than that $1,200. That probably cost her a lot of scraping and saving to get. She's very proud. She's walked up with her child in front of the entire organization there, congregation, and said, "Hey, here's my $1,200. And he says, nope, not enough. Oh, man. So tithing, not my favorite subject. Not my favorite subject at all. Let's see what we got next. All right, so this one is from Leading Occasion 428. Here's the title. My mom thinks she's showing love to this gay man that goes to our church. She believes that God can deliver him. She says the spirit of confusion latched onto him, and I'm actually angry. Well, yeah, I don't blame you there, Leading Occasion. She says, they go on to say, I wasn't around when this happened, so she's just telling me this about 10 minutes ago. So yesterday she told me that there's a man at church and that she sees this man has a true thirst for Christ. So after service, she gave him a word of encouragement. The man told her that he had had a hard childhood, and my mom thinks that's what turned him gay. Because all children that have a tough childhood turn out to be gay. Ugh. She says it's the spirit of confusion that got into him. She says that she showed him love by not pushing him away because he's gay. What? So you do the bare minimum. You don't push someone away, and that's showing love. I'm going to read that again. Make sure I read it correct. She says she showed him love by not pushing him away because he's gay. Think about that line. I don't even care about the rest of it right in a second. This woman, the mother, presumably, said that she was showing him love by not pushing him away because he was gay, which means she's sort of implying that she normally would push someone away because they're gay. But in this case, she's going to go ahead and choose to show him love, which is not exactly the same as just being a decent human being. What? Oh my goodness. Then they go on to say, what love, in caps, is she showing? First you say being gay is a spirit of confusion, and when hugging him you say blood of Jesus, because you think that would protect you from the gay spirit latching on. All right. Okay, so this is insane. but I absolutely believe this is exactly what happened, because this is a cliche in the sense that this person is truly lost and they have a thirst for Christ apparently, but he's gay and he's obviously must be confused and blah 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 blah. And this woman's out there trying to just to show him Jesus's love by not pushing him away. Yeah, so man, leading occasion 420. I'm sharing your outrage at that. I talk about LGBTQ issues on this because I can't not talk about them. They're so intertwined with religious problems that you can't separate the two. It's impossible. Every time I read through various questions, there's always a question related to the LGBTQ community and how it relates to religion. Why Christianity and other religions, quite frankly, Islam, to name two major ones, why they have such a problem with homosexuality. I'm just going to use that as a broad term. With homosexuality above almost everything else. It is truly bizarre to me. I've never really understood it. You look through the Bible, and homosexuality is not mentioned that much, right? And it's not necessarily more or less of a sin than a lot of other things. A lot of divorced people sitting in pews railing against gay people. The irony there, cut it with a knife, right? But why it's such a big deal, I just do not understand. I really don't. And I've been trying to figure this out for the last 40 years. It was one of the things that made me go against organized religion. I was already pulling away from sort of the idea of God anyways, but organized religion. I grew up in the South, so Southern Baptist. When I started having friends that were gay, this is right after high school, and realizing that they're just normal people. I mean, I had a few that I went to school with, and I had a couple that were a few years older than me that I worked with. And I would see them and their friends that would come out and hang out because I worked at a gas station. And I was like, these are just normal guys and normal girls. Quite frankly, there was a woman and two guys. They were all friends. They were all gay. They had all their friends coming up. Constant, as people do when you're young like that. They all seemed fine. I could not understand where the problem was. And then I would see, what was the guy's name? Homer Lindsay. Look him up. He's Jacksonville, Florida. He's dead now. He was the big time Southern Baptist church down there at First Baptist Church. His name was Homer Lindsay. And you'd see him, holding up the Bible and, railing against the gay people and blah, 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 blah. And I always thought, okay, I guess I've missed it because I've met now a few gay people at this 18 or whatever I was. And like, yeah, they're not at all like you say they are. So this woman trying to show love by just not rejecting him out of hand. And then also, where this is going to go. They're going to try to convert him from being gay. And if this guy truly has the thirst for Christ, if he truly is religious, and there's a lot of religious gay people, baffles me, but okay. If he is truly religious, he could get into quite a struggle because he's going to be going against everything in his body that says he's gay. And he's going to try to follow the teachings of that church. And they're going to try to convert him. And they're going to try to, to prove that he's not gay anymore. That never works. I don't care what you say. It does not work. It just doesn't work, right?
I'm not gay no more. I am delivered. I don't like men no more. I said I like women. Women. I said women. I'm not gay. I would not date a man. I would not carry a purse. I would not put on makeup. I will love a woman. Now, listen.
So yeah, leading occasion 428. I feel for you. I do. You're not gonna be able to do anything about this. I don't think you were expecting to do anything. I think you're probably just venting. I'm gonna vent with you because I get it, but you're not gonna be able to change this woman, your mom. She's going to believe that she's doing the right thing by showing him love, by not rejecting him out of hand, by trying to plant seeds of Christian love in his ear, and maybe that'll stop him from being attracted to other men. Yeah, that's not going to happen. But yeah, I'm with you on that one. All right, so this one is T-glue. T-glue. Something that's never made sense to me is how God and everyone else was active during the times of the Bible being written, at least in Christianity. However, now there is almost no activity from anything relating to that. And most of it's just speculation and prayer. What is the counter argument to this? Yeah, other than he will return. Yeah, it is. It's kind of almost cliche. We say this on our side in terms of the atheists and agnostics. We say this a lot, meaning that there was a lot of miracles and a lot of God and a lot of, talking to God and talking to Jesus and all these kind of things 2,000 years ago, supposedly. Where's he been? I mean, Christopher Hitchens has a great line on this, and he talks about humanity. Humanity has been around for X number of years, and there's sort of debates on how long. And I think he settles on, say, 100,000 years. So he says humanity, human beings, man, have been on this planet for 100,000 years. And for the first 98,000 years, God sits back and watches famine, war, natural disasters, disease, all these sort of things wipe out, make miserable every human being on the planet. People die from childbirth. They die from basic things like their teeth going bad. Again, they're killed. Wars are constantly happening over land and over resources, over women. All these sort of things. For 98,000 years, God just sits back and watches it all play out. And then 2,000 years ago, he says, hey, I'm going to fix this. And he sends Jesus down for 32 years, and then nothing ever since. Nobody's seen him since. Nobody's seen Jesus since. Nobody's seen God since. So there's a very flurry of activity there, and then nothing. Long stretch of 98,000 years, a little bit of activity, and then nothing. If you're a Christian, that's sort of where you go with that, right? So, and maybe the numbers are off a bit, but you get my point. Yeah, where is God now? And here's a funny thing, and I think we all know this to be true. If you were to say, say I'm as an atheist, I were to go to church tomorrow and claim that I was doing something and God came into this room right here and he spoke to me. I saw him physically, and he spoke to me, and he took my hand and whatever. No one's going to believe me. Christians aren't really going to believe me. They might give me some, what they'll do is they'll have me come to their church and speak, but no one's going to truly believe that I had a sit down face to face with God, because Christians don't even buy that. They just won't, right? They just won't. They're going to look at Mike and they're going to, he's an idiot. He's an atheist. He's just playing us in some way. They're not going to believe it because it hasn't happened. And they know it hasn't happened. So, yeah. So, T-glue, you're right. Where is the activity? Why did the activity stop? Okay, Jesus hasn't come back yet. Okay, that's fine. But God was, poking his head in and out of the world before Jesus. So, where's he been? Where's he been for the last 2,000 years? I'm curious what Christians would say. What is the argument? I think you even asked, what's the counter argument to that? Where has God been for 2,000 years? And not mysteriously, meaning that someone says, oh, my tumor got cured mysteriously. Okay, that's craziness, but okay. That's not exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about literally, why don't we look up in the sky and see Jesus or God? Why isn't God standing behind me trying to convince me that he exists? Why hasn't God shown himself to 50,000 people at a football game? I mean, why is it always some secretive backwoods individual that nothing can prove? I mean, the difference between seeing God and seeing a UFO, there's none. It's always some random person that has this experience with an alien. It's the same for God, right? There's just never any proof. For a being that desperately wants us to believe in him so much that he will punish us for all eternity for not believing him, he does very little to make his presence known. So, yeah, it's a good question. I don't get it. Okay. Sorry, next one. I'm laughing ahead of time because I just glanced at it. This is from Liam 5341. Liam is not a fan of mine, apparently. He left me this comment on one of my videos, and I can't remember the video. And I don't think I've brought this up on the channel. I've read it, so it's familiar to me, but I don't know if I've shared it with you. But I'm going to go ahead and share it now. Liam. Now, there's a couple pieces. I want you to remember this. He says, okay, fair enough. I don't like Christian extremists pushing their views on laws on me either. All right, Liam, we're sharing something here. You and I are on the same side, buddy. But then he goes on to say, now, if you atheist leftists would stop pushing your indoctrination propaganda, not healthcare, but the murder of children for convenience, manipulation of children, anti-freedom BS on the rest of us, maybe we could live and let live. Also, most of you never come for the Muslims, which are far worse than the Christians. Oh, Liam. Yeah. The next time atheists come to your door and knock on it and say, hey, could we tell you about Christopher Hitchens or Richard Dawkins? Okay, remind me then. The next time on your way to work, you pass 4 or 5 different atheist centers with big atheist cathedrals, you let me know. Yeah? Okay, will you do that? The next time you're driving down a random highway in Indiana and you see a 40-foot symbol of an atom that says atheism, you let me know. So when it comes to pushing propaganda, I wish we had the power that you think we have. It's just insane. And then he goes on to, he's an anti-abortion person. That's fine. Philosophically, we obviously disagree, but you're allowed to have a difference of opinion on that. I have no problem with you having that opinion. We have seen the same evidence and we've come to a different conclusion. That's fine. We will have a fundamental difference of opinion there, but that's okay. We can work through that. But this idea that we are pushing an atheist propaganda, atheist agenda on everybody, man, I wish we had that level of power. I really do. The next time a president is elected out of the last, 47 different presidential administrations, the next time that one is elected as an atheist, you let me know. Because I haven't seen close to that happening. Are there any atheists in the Senate? Are there any atheist governors? I don't know. Are there any atheist mayors of any of the 100 largest cities in America? I mean, yeah. Let's just stop being silly, Liam. Come on, man. It just doesn't work that way. We just don't have that level of authority. We don't have that level of power. And for us to overcome the propaganda machine of Christianity, it's not happening anytime, probably in my lifetime, probably not your lifetime either, Liam. You just don't like the fact that we're trying to take a seat at the table at all. There's a good quote for that, and I have to put it in the on the screen there when I look it up. I can't remember exactly how it goes. But when people are trying to get equality, people feel attacked. The people that are in power, the people that have the privilege, they feel attacked when people in the minority are trying to get some level of equality. And that's what's going on here with Liam. And I will address his last point because it is a fairly reasonable point, but it's a cliche point. Also, most of you never come after Muslims, which are far worse than Christians. Here's what I'm going to do with you, Liam. I'm going to agree with you on that in the sense that I'm going to agree that most of the world's atrocities today, 2026, are committed in the name of Islam. Don't come for me. I get that Christianity is not good. I agree that Christianity has had plenty of bad times in the last 2,000 years. The atrocities that have committed in the name of Christianity are terrible. Full stop. I'm talking about now, right now. In the era that I live, I mean, in this 1900s and now in the 2000s, Islam is far worse. The problem, though, Liam, is I live in Chicago, which is in the United States. I mentioned how many atheist presidents there are. There's also no Muslim presidents. There's no Muslim governors that I'm aware of. I think there's one. What is she, a senator or she's a Congress? I think she's a congresswoman, Ilhan Omar, I think, out of Michigan. If she's the only Muslim in Congress that I'm aware of. If there's any more, I'd be highly surprised. And if there's more than 2 or 3, I will be floored. So, and again, are there any significant politicians on either side that are Muslim? Not really. You're going to name somebody. Someone's going to say, oh, yeah, but what about this person? Or the guy that just got elected in New York City. Great. Fine. Okay. There's your one example. I'd have to have a book as big as this Bible with all the examples of Christian politicians and lawmakers and judges and police and yada, yada, yada. So I live in America where Christianity tries to run everything. The laws that seek to oppress, the laws that keep LGBTQ people hidden as much as they can, the laws that try to take rights away from women, as you mentioned, abortion, those are Christian people making those laws based on Christianity. So while I agree with you that Islam is worse in today's era than Christianity is, by and large, I know there's all caveats, hear me out, it doesn't matter to me while I sit here in America. If I lived in Afghanistan, I would complain about Muslims, although I probably wouldn't because I might be killed for that. But I don't live in Afghanistan. I live in the United States of America, which is by and large a Christian nation because of the number of people here, not because of our laws, not because of the way we were designed, not because of the Constitution, but just the sheer number of Christians who try to worm their way into all of our sort of government through Christian nationalism. So yes, when I complain about religion, I'm going to complain about the one that has the effect on me. You know, it's just the way it is. If I lived in Thailand, and I might complain about Buddhists. Okay, I don't live in Thailand. Simple as that. So thanks for playing, Liam. Liam. All right, next up we have Home MD 13. Home MD 13. Why do you think some smart people are still religious? Okay, it's a good question. They go on to say, why do some intelligent people still believe in religion or cults? I have a smart, kind friend ended up deeply believing in Buddhist cult, MLM products, energy stones, and irrational doctrines, and I don't understand why someone who can think well in other areas completely fail at critical thinking when it comes to these beliefs. That's a really good question. It is a good question. I don't know that I have a great answer for that. Although I would say that they do sort of say, when someone, what do they say? I don't understand why someone who can think well in other areas completely fails. I think that phrase kind of sums it up, right? Meaning that, like, I work in the financial industry. I know a lot about financial stuff. I can do math when it comes to finances. I know nothing about biology in terms of, I'm not a biologist. I don't have a PhD in biology. I'm not a doctor. I'm pretty smart in this area. You put me in that area, I don't know anything about it. So you can be smart and then not smart is not the word I'm looking for, but you can be really, really smart over here and have a completely different opinion over there. And I would say, as an atheist, we tend to think of ourselves as critical thinkers. That's probably true. I'm sure someone argue with us on that. But we like to think that we've come to atheism through the lens of critical thinking. We've gone through some steps and we've said, okay, this doesn't really make sense. And we thought about it and we've argued about it and we've gotten different bits of information and we've come to this conclusion. Now, what happens with most of the people I've ever met and ever talked to about it, they simply have never given it any thought. They were taught as babies, literally baptized as babies in Christianity. And they've never really given it any thought, to the point that it is so much of their makeup and their being and their just worldview that they don't even want to think about it, right? There's no reason for them to have a critical thinking exercise when it comes to religion. They could be a brilliant attorney or a great banker of some sort, or a lawyer, or what else, a lawyer, I don't know, I just said lawyer twice. Whatever it is that they do, they could be really a computer programmer. They could be really good at these things and have critical thinking skills as it applies to that subject matter. But they've just not been given a reason to really challenge their beliefs. And don't forget, religion is a very big carrot and stick kind of thing, right? You're going to go to heaven and see all your dead relatives, and everything will be great, and your life will be so much better, and the streets will be paved with gold, and you'll have a mansion in the sky. Or you will burn for all eternity in hell, in fires and boiling, whatever, lava. That's a pretty big stick, right? Or the big carrot. If you're scared, if you're fearful, that stick is pretty, it's not something you want to screw around with, right? So, yeah, I try to not fall into the trap, and I don't always do it, of thinking because someone is a diehard believer that they are dumb. They are not dumb. They are indoctrinated, I would say. I don't have a problem saying that, because they are. I mean, if you've been taught something since you were a baby, that's indoctrination by definition. Should they take some opportunity to sort of think through these things and look at them critically and step back and say, okay, if I was introduced to this religion today at 25, 35, 55, 75 years old, whatever the age they are, would I believe this if I didn't already have this existing baggage? I would say probably not, quite frankly. If religion was wiped out tomorrow, it wouldn't exist the day after. It wouldn't exist. There's nothing there. 2 plus 2 would always be 4. Gravity would always be true. But Jesus, religion, Islam, Scientology, Joseph Smith and the golden plates or whatever, none of this would be true the day after it gets wiped out completely. It just wouldn't be, because it doesn't really hold up, right? There'd be no belly of the whale story. There'd be Noah's story. None of that would exist because we have the science to back up the things that we believe now. So I don't think that people are dumb. I just don't believe that. I don't accept that. I think you can be a brilliant person and still be religious. You just haven't done the math yet. I'm using math as a metaphor, I guess. But yeah, I think that's okay. I can live with that. So Home MD 13, I'd say don't fret over it. Don't sweat it. It's very, very hard to overcome something you've been told all your life. It's just really, really hard. People do not like to think of themselves as having been wrong, flat out wrong for years. And I guarantee you, almost every atheist, none of us switched on a dime. It was a journey. Some of them was a shorter journey than others, but most of us, there was a journey. There was some little idea that said, that doesn't make sense to me. It took a while to get there. And a lot of us atheists, not me, but a lot of atheists really struggled with letting go of that religion. I was never a strong believer, so it wasn't hard on me, but some people really, really struggled with that. And if you didn't have to go down that road, often people won't. Smart or not, they just won't go down that road. So be awesome. Be awesome. Some S-U-M. My wife deconstructed, and now we're on the verge of a divorce. Could I have done something different? I read this, and this is a little long, so I'm not sure I'm going to read the whole thing. But basically, these people, they're in their early 50s. She's been deconstructing for about 2 years. He is not. So he is a believer. She's deconstructing. So she's on her journey into some level of atheism, or at least agnosticism, and now she's leading into that. He says he didn't come from a fundamentalist background that she did. So she's making a very extreme a journey or arc, if you will. So she was a fundamentalist, and now she is deconstructing. That is a more severe arc than someone like me, who is very casually Christian. Like, I kind of believed, and then I kind of didn't, and now I don't at all. It wasn't, the journey wasn't that far. It's kind of a short gap there. She's going 180 degrees, right? From fundamentalism to atheism, if you will. So he goes on to say that basically their marriage of 30 years, he's not a Trump supporter. He's not a conservative Christian. He leans more towards Richard Rohr and the Anglican Church, and a fairly progressive beliefs. that his God accepts all people. Anyways, she says, I'm a good man without a mean bone in my body. I thought my wife was moving with me on this. We did a book club and everything. We were starting to go to the Episcopal church, and she just couldn't do it. So now she's basically asking for a divorce. And what could I have done to fend this off, is what he says. I felt that even if she left the faith, we could still make it work. I'm going to be on your side on this one, in the sense that I feel for you, Be Awesome, because you've not done anything. And we don't know anything more than what he said. So we only know his side of this, right? But I have had these situations before. I know another gentleman who's the opposite. He was a Pentecostal preacher, as was his wife. They had a church together, and he started Deconstruct. She did not want to go that, and she divorced him, right? He wasn't divorcing her. She divorced him because he left their faith. So this goes on both sides. I don't really get that. Not in the sense, you've been married for 30 years? 30 years. He says that she's telling him he is a good man. He's not done anything supposedly different than he did the day before. But she's deconstructing, and she can't accept that. I find that, I don't like it. I just don't like it. I don't know what the word is here I'm looking for, but she can deconstruct all she wants. That's fine. I did before my wife did. That's fine. I never stopped loving her. I never had any ill will about the fact that she wasn't embracing atheism. That was fine. She doesn't have to accept everything I like, and vice versa, right? And as an atheist, I would urge her to be more tolerant of people's beliefs, not their actions, but their beliefs, in the sense that if he believes in God, and they go on to say, I mean, he says that he's progressive, he thinks God accepts all people. This doesn't sound like a fundamentalist, right? It doesn't sound like he hates gay people, and that's why she's leaving. You know, that's a different kind of thing. If his actions, if he's standing out there protesting, a gay church or a gay nightclub, or he's standing in front of an abortion clinic and he's radicalized, that might be a reason to leave him. I get it. But simply because he believes, it doesn't rise to the level for me to throw away a 30-year relationship. I don't understand it. So what was your name again? Be Awesome. I'm on your side on this. And I wish I had something to tell you. I hope that you maybe could seek therapy between the two of you. I would look for a secular therapist, someone who's not religious, because they're going to be conflicted. They might say they're not, but they are. They're going to have some bias, right? I think she should seek that. And I'm going to cross my fingers here and hope that her journey, a lot of people, when they're on that journey, they're very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? They're very strong. That's not the good word here. Think of it like people that are anti-smokers because they used to smoke a lot. It's kind of the same thing. You're anti-church. A lot of us go through some sort of a militant sort of perspective, and we want to make our point out there. We want to get everyone to know that we are now atheists, and look how dumb you guys all are. And a lot of us then calm down, like, okay, that was probably the wrong way to go. She might be in the middle of that. There might be some time if you can delay this breakup. But yeah, awesome. Be awesome. I feel for you, man. I really do. And I would hope that she would come to her senses, if in fact that is all it is. And again, I'm going to assume that what you've said is the whole of it. I would hope that she will come to her senses and accept that you're the same loving husband that you were yesterday. She has a different perspective on life now, but that doesn't make you a bad person, nor does it make you someone who shouldn't be part of her life. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I feel bad. I really do. I feel very bad. I think people can have a relationship and be married and be of opposite beliefs like that. But yeah, good luck with that, man. Really, good luck with that. All right, so we're going to take two quick ones, I think. Because it's Sunday morning. I'm sure you got some things to get to. So let's go ahead. This is from Ned Kellett 001. For some reason, heaven only exists after death. I thought that was a kind of interesting title. And I had to go say, okay, what's the deal here? So basically he's talking about it's very convenient that religion, and we're going to say Christianity because, again, we've discussed why that's important here in the United States, but religion offers all these things only after you die. Now, why is that? I really am genuinely and sincerely asking the question for those of you that are religious. And believe it or not, we have people that are religious that listen to this. Why is it that God doesn't make a paradise here on earth? And I know you're going to say, well, because Eve ate the apple. That's ridiculous. God, whose first, 4 commandments are all about loving him and praising him and giving him all this glory. You'd think the least he could do was give all of humanity a paradise-like environment. He did it for 2 people. One person ate an apple while the other person stood there and watched, happily doing it. And from then on, billions and billions and billions of people have had to suffer with a promise that if they die, then they can see what this paradise is like. Yeah, I'm a little suspicious, to say the least. A little suspicious of that. If you created beings, and again, the main reason for these beings to exist is to praise you. There's no reason, if I'm a God, I have no reason to have beings anyways. But God has said, no, I'm creating you. And remember, the first 4 things you got to do is praise me back. Be happy that I created you. Be thankful that I created you. Praise me. Don't put any of the other gods, because he implies that there are gods out there. Don't put any of those ahead of me. I am the head honcho. I'm the big cheese, right? But I'm not going to do anything necessary for you until you die. That's a little strange, right? It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure someone's going to give me an answer as to why that makes sense. It doesn't really make sense to me. I really don't get it. Why wouldn't God just make this a perfect world? If we're going to get a perfect world anyways, for all eternity, well, this little blip of 80-something years that we live on average, why not make it as pleasant as possible? I'd be more apt to pray and thank and give all my glory to a being that made sure I was perfectly happy every single day. Yeah, I don't get it. It's a good question, though. So what was it again? Ned Kellett 001. Thanks for putting that question there. I really do like that question. This is going to go in the similar vein in terms of why did God do these things. This is as if Jesus resurrected, maybe he should have hung around longer. Yeah, maybe a better plan. Who is this from? This is DBAS RA 99. Maybe it's DBA SRA 9. I don't know. DBA SRA 99. It says maybe a better plan would be to hang around and prove the story for all to see. Saying he has to leave in order for the Holy Spirit to come just sounds like an excuse. If there's a universal rule that Jesus and the Holy Spirit cannot be in the same planet at the same time, is there a universal rule? It's kind of like Superman and Clark Kent, right? They can't be both in the same place. No, it is kind of a good question, though. So if Jesus was resurrected after 3 days and he ascended to heaven, why? Why? Why not come back and live amongst the people? I mean, could you need any further proof? Spend your time walking the earth like Caine on Kung Fu, I guess he did come to America. That's how Mormonism started. Jesus came to America and buried plates in upstate New York, right? I don't really know the full story. If you're Mormon, I'm sure you know. That was the all-American Jesus version. But outside of that, Jesus just took off. He was gone. Took a long weekend and then came back and hit the road, right? That's kind of a weird thing to do, right? I mean, why wouldn't you hang around? You loved being among the people when you were a human, when you were alive. And now that you've been resurrected and you're clearly the Son of God, well, why not just show everyone? Why not walk amongst the people, spreading the word? Yeah, I don't know why not. How different would his life have been? He was doing these supposed good things anyways. He was walking on water. He was turning stuff into fish. He was making wine out of nothing. You know, why not keep at it? Why not visit every continent, every country, every town? You're going to live for eternity anyway. You got plenty of time. You know, why don't I go to the train station 2 blocks from my house right now and just run into you? Hey, Jesus, nice to see you, man. How's it going? What's the reason for not doing that? Literally, I would love to. I'm being snarky a little bit, and I apologize in the sense that I don't mean to disrespect the religion, but that's a legitimately good question, right? There's probably a reason. I'm sure it's not actually in the Bible. It's probably something someone said and interpreted and they've been told. But why wouldn't a God or the Son of God stick around and save humanity? Why make it so difficult for people to see, believe, show up only on a burned piece of toast? Why do all that when you could literally just walk around and shake some hands? So I don't know. I'm gonna leave you with that thought. I don't know if you know the answer to that or you've been told an answer to that. I would love to know what it is. And as I always say on this channel, we don't have to agree. I want you to be civil. We'll be civil back and forth. We can have a good civil conversation. If you get to be a dick about things and start to be rude, and I'm going to ignore you. But if you have a legitimate question here or you have a legitimate answer to some of these things, I am all ears because I really just don't know. As I said, I was a casual Christian, so I didn't read every level of every word in the Bible. I didn't delve into it. I didn't spend years listening to a preacher tell me what they think it meant. I didn't do all that, right? So sometimes these sort of things, if there's a story that explains that, I've not heard it and I don't know it. And also, if you do say these things and you let me know, say in the comments, point to me, whatever book. This is the King James Bible. Tell me what book it is and what chapter and verse, and I will look it up and read it. I do this all the time. You see a bookmarker in there. I'm curious. Obviously, I'm probably not going to believe what it says, but I'm curious to see where your perspective is coming from. So, with that, hope you have a great rest of your Sunday. A great rest of your week. If you're listening to this or watching this later in the week, then I hope you enjoy it. Make sure you like and subscribe and let people know that this is a show worth listening to and watching. And in the meantime, make sure you drop me a comment. I do read them and I do respond, as I just said. In the meantime, you take care.